This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi. We continue in the Navi Yoel, and we're in Parak Daled, which is the last parak of Yoel. And according to most Mefarshim, the Navi describes how the enemies of Klal Yisrael will gather to attack Yerushalayim in the end of days, and they will be annihilated as part of the wars of Gog and Magog, which are also discussed by the Navi Cheskel and the Navi Zechariah. Now, interestingly, the Abarbanel in the Malbim follows that path, learns that Milchemes Gog and Magog is that Esav will convene on Yerushalayim to attack the Arabs, and they'll both basically destroy each other. And we wish both sides Hatzlacha Rabbah. And after doing that, Klal Yisrael will reign supreme. That is the concept of Milchemes Gog and Magog according to Abarbanel. According to Ibn Ezra, however, this nevuah that we're about to learn is not discussing the era of Mashiach, but something that took place already in the past, during the reign of Yehoshaphat Melech Yehuda, when the fear of the Rebbeinu Shalom fell upon the nations surrounding Yerushalayim, and the nations come to offer tribute to Yehoshaphat. This is how the Ibn Ezra learns, but again, according to most Mefarshim, this is a nevuah about Milchemes Gog and Magog. Ki hine, Parak Daled, yes. Okay. Ki, 4. Hine bayom hema. In those days, va'esahin at that time, asher ashiv es shvus Yehuda v'Yerushalayim, that I will return the captives of Yehuda and Yerushalayim. Says the Mitzudas David, asher ashiv she'ashiv la'artzam, I will return to their land as B'nei Hashvi, the children of captivity, Yehuda v'Yerushalayim. So the question is, what about the rest of the Klal Yisrael? Won't God return all the tribes? The Mitzudas David says, V'lo yizachar shar hashvatim, l'fi shekol nevuasei hoisarak al Yehuda v'Yerushalayim. It's only talking about the region of Yehuda and Yerushalayim. L'chin lo yizachar mehem. Therefore, it was not mentioned from the others. Aval v'ema shegam b'nei asar sashatim yashuvu gam hema. The truth is, the other tribes will return as well. Pasuk Beis, v'kibatzti es kol hagoyim. I will gather all the goyim. And the Malbim just points out this will take place v'achros hayamim. I will gather all the goyim. V'hoiradatim, and I will bring them down el emek Yehoshaphat, to the valley of Yehoshaphat. V'nishpatti imam, I will indict them. Sham, alami, over my nation, v'nachalasi, and my inheritance, Yisrael, asher pizru v'agoyim, that were scattered among the Gentiles, v'sa'artzi chileku, and they divided my land. Let's see Mitzudas David. It says Mitzudas David, v'kibatzti, oz ekboitz es kol ha'umais, I will gather all the nations. Va'oirid oisam, and I'll bring them down el emek Yehoshaphat, to the valley of Yehoshaphat, Kain Shem HaMakom, Sheyiplu Sham HaUmais HaTzoivim Al Yishalayim. V'nishpadati imam, I will judge with them. As vakach imam, I will quarrel with them. Al ma sha'asu la'ami, on that which they did to my nation, b'yamim ha'karmoinim, in the early days. Ratzaloymar Sham Avi Aleim HaPranias, there I will bring upon them punishment. Meaning God says, I will take them to task, I will indict them, I will summon them. And this is called a vikuach, meaning God is going to reprimand them, because this is going to notify them that they sinned. Asher pizru, because they exiled my people and they divided my nation, ultimately causing a rift between the Asar Sashvatim and Yehuda. The Malbim learns, if you take a look in Pasuk Beis in the Malbim, the kibatzti is kol hagoyim. God will cause that all the nations will gather in the Mechama of Gog and Magog, which was prophesied by Yecheskel. And the Malbim gives us some information that the Bnei Edom will come to fight with the Bnei Yishmael. And then the Bnei Yishmael will fight with the Bnei Edom. And God will instigate this. Now, it's not hard to see how one day there could be a battle between the West and the Muslim world, right? That's not a hard thing to imagine. Right? It's basically the stage is set. Right? It's only a matter of someone pressing the button. So that's the prediction of Melchemes Gog Magog, according to the Malbim. And God will bring them down to the valley of Yehoshaphat. That's the name of the valley. And the multitude of Gog, that's where they will fall. Now, why is it called Emek Yehoshaphat? This I didn't realize. Why is the valley called Emek Yehoshaphat? The Malbim explains that it's called Emek Yehoshaphat because I will judge them there. Yehoshaphat, Lashon Mishpat, because of the atrocities that they committed. So now the Malbim says that the Goyim will try to vindicate themselves. You know what the Goyim are going to say? I think the defense attorney for the Nazis in the Nuremberg trial used the same argument. And that is, well, obviously God wanted it, so we're just carrying out God's plans. That's the classic argument. Right? Shahagam shahashem gazar aleim golos. Even though God did decree on the Jewish people exile, the Malbim says, they added two things. Number one, they scattered us so much that the Jewish people could not find menucha, even in the lands of their enemies, because we were scattered literally to the ends of the world. So that's the first part of the pasuk. Asher pizru bagoyim. Number two, the pasuk says, "V'nachalasi Yisrael, v'yasartzi chileku." Goyim, you were following the orders of God to exile Jewish people. Nobody told you to take possession of Israel. Nobody gave you rights to Eretz Yisrael. Ki'ilu kanu es ha'aretz l'nachala. You took Israel as if it's yours. What do you mean, British mandate? Even today, recently, outside of the old city, there's a place called Kivrei Malachim, the graves of the kings. And we can't open it. You know why? Because the French have a mandate on it. Ma French Eitzel Harsina. What are they doing there? No, it's theirs. They're not opening it up. So nobody gave the Gentiles rights to take Eretz Yisrael as if it's theirs. And number three, the next pasuk, V'yal ami yadu goyra. And upon my peoples they cast lots. Vayitnu hayeled bazoina. They gave a young boy for a harlot's fee. V'hayalda, and a young girl machru vayayin. They sold for wine vayishtu. Look at Metzudas David. They cast lots against our nation. Who belongs to who? They gave little children as a reward for a harlot, biyayin, in exchange for wine. And the Malbim in Pasuk Gimel says, the third thing the Goyim did beyond what they were allotted to do, that they took the Jewish people as if they owned them as slaves, and they cast lots against them. Who's going to be an Eved or Shivcha? And they were so lowly in their eyes that they gave a young boy as a harlot's fee. Pasuk Daled, V'gam ma etein li tzar v'tzidain. And also, what are you to me, Tyre and Sidon? V'chol Galilais Palashes, and all the districts of the Plishtim, Philistia. Hagamul atem eshalmin olai? Are you paying repayment to me? Meaning, are you paying me back for something? It is like the Navi speaking on behalf of God. We'll see what this means. V'im goimlim atem olai? Meaning, are you taking action upon me? Kal mehera, very swiftly, ashav gemolchem roishim, I will repay your recompense to your head. So what does this mean? Look at Metzudas David. V'gam ma'atem li. So this is sort of our method, by the way, if you want to know. The Metzudas David translates the words literally. And then, so I like to look at the Metzudas David first, because that gives you the literal translation. And then we look at Rashi and other Mefarshim that explain sometimes the allegory and the mashal. But first, just to get the literal translation, Metzudas David said, what are you to me, Tzor? Hagamol v'chiatem eshaman li gamol. God's saying, I never did anything bad to you. Why do you do this to my people? You're paying me back for something? V'im goimlim. If you're not paying me back for some evil I did for you in the past, but rather you're initiating the bad, Raki hascholas hara, you should know, I will knock you silly quick. Meaning God says, if you're not paying me back for something I did to you, watch out, because I will get back at you rather quickly. Look at Rashi. Rashi, remember we had in the Haftarah of Shlomo HaMelech, Hashem nasan chacham l'shlomo, vayas Shlomo shalom. There was shalom between Shlomo and Hiram Melech Tzur. Hiram Melech Tzur was a very wicked individual, but rather wise in construction, and he's the father of Tyre. And you have the movement that we discussed, the societal movement of the Freemasons, which are based on following the ancestral rites, rites, of Hiram Melech Tzur. Okay, so we know Shlomo actually made a deal with Hiram, and he gave Hiram, Rashi says, 20 cities in Israel. So God says, this is what you're paying me back for? Did we do anything wrong to you? We actually were very kind to you, God says. Shlomo gave you 20 cities in Israel. And if you don't, we're going to pay you back rather quickly. Look in the Malbim. The Malbim says that the nations that I delivered Klal Yisrael in their hands, like Assyria and Bavel, they went beyond the measure. So the Malbim continues, Tsur, Sidon, and Plashes, meaning the nations that Klal Yisrael were delivered to, like Assyria and Bavel, they just went beyond the pale. But Sur, Sidon, and Plashes, you didn't have Klal Yisrael in your land. Why'd you get involved at all? I understand, let's say, Mitzrayim. So Klal Yisrael was there, okay, they took it to the extreme. But these nations, they have no place even associating and getting involved. Are you paying me back for something? Now the Malbim says something very interesting. What's the difference between Goimel Gemul and Meshalim Gemul? Meshalim Gemul is, let's say somebody did something bad to you through venomous hatred, so you pay him back, Mida K'neged Mida. Goimel Gemul is you're paying somebody back just for the hatred. Like this. If you, let's say Ruvain does something bad to Shimon out of hatred, so Shimon is Meshalim Gemul to Ruvain. But if Shimon just hates Ruvain and he wants to do something to him in hatred, that's called Goimel Gemul. Okay, the next pasuk. Asher kasbi uzahavi lekachtem. So this is listing what the bad things that the neighboring nations did. My silver and gold you took. U'machamadei hatoivim, and my good treasures and my good possessions. Heveisem lahechlechem, you brought to your palaces. Says the Mitzudas David, Asher Kaspi, Ata Yifarish Hara Sha'asul Yisrael. Now it's going to explain the evil that the nations of the world did to Israel. V'amar, and it says, Hinei hakesav v'hazav shehishbati ani l'Yisrael, the silver and gold that I gave to the Klal Yisrael, shalalta mehem, you took as spoils, b'yayim bai ha'oyev aleim, when the enemy came upon you. Umachamadi, and my treasures, dvarim chamudim v'toivim, good and treasured items, shenasati l'Yisrael, atam acharive Yerushalayim, you, destroyers of Jerusalem, bazisa mehem, you took as spoils, v'heveisam l'hechlechem. Uvnei Yehuda, now the Malbim contrasts. It's one thing Nebuchadnezzar took the money. Okay, I gave Nebuchadnezzar the money, but you took it on your own. Now God is addressing Tzur, Sidon, and Plashes, by the way, which were all destroyed in the times of Alexander Mokdan. Uvnei Yehuda, Uvnei Yerushalayim, Mechartem, Levnei HaYavanim. The sons of Yehuda, the sons of Jerusalem, you sold to the children of the of Greece, Laman harchikam, in order to distance me'al gavulam, you wanted to distance the Jewish people from their borders.
When was this stated? So you're talking about Greece. So Greece is.
So again, according to most Mefarshim, this is a prophecy of what will take place in the end of days because of what they did in the past. So, because when did they do this? This refers to Tzur and Sidon and Pelashes, what they did before the rise of the Greek Empire, or right immediately before.
And the Greek Empire rose
in the times of the Second Temple.
in the Second Temple, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was Alexander, right? And he's
So-
giving this, and Yoel is.
And Yoel is saying, you sold Jewish children to the Greeks.
And the Greek, and when is Yoel? Or, I mean, when is he prophesying? What is this? The date of Yoel. So it sounds
Yoel
like
is prophesying in the time of the first Beis HaMikdash. Okay? And he
Were around then?
no.
No.
And he's prophesying regarding what will take place,
He talks about Greeks in the future.
because he's saying that these nations will be destroyed because of what they will do, presumably in the future, and so that fits in better according to those that say this is a prophecy about something that already took place from our standpoint. But if this is referring to what will take place in times of Milchemes Gog uMagog, then it would have to be that they will be destroyed in the future because of what they did in the past. But in terms of Yoel's standpoint, it was also the future.
It's still the future. Okay.
So they sold Jewish children to the Bnei Yevanim in order to distance them from their land. The Metzudas David says, "L'chartem ki heim hayu shchenei Yisrael." These nations were the neighbors of the Klal Yisrael, v'ganvuk tanehem, and they stole their young ones, u'macharam, and they sold them, l'man yirchaku migvulam, so that they should be distanced from their borders, l'val yigula hadavar, so it should not be revealed. Meaning, they kidnapped and then they sold these kids far away, so that it should never be discovered. So God is promising. Here, look at the Malbim. The Malbim says that the Bnei Yehuda, they sold the children to the Bnei Yevanim at the time of the Churban, so that they should be distanced from their borders. That's even worse than taking silver. You took silver for your own benefit. But to sell the Jewish children far away, you only did that out of pure hatred. Therefore, Hashem says, I will pay you back, midah k'neged midah. Okay. Hineni mi'iram min hamakim. Behold, I will rouse them, min hamakim, to come from the place, Asher mechartem oisam sham, that you sold them there. V'hashivoisi gemolchem b'roishchem. And I will visit what you did upon your heads. Metzudas David said, Hineni mi'iram, o'er libam. I will arouse their hearts, lachsar min hamakim shenimkaru, lavayal artzam, to have them return from the place that they were sold, to come to the land. Ratzalaymar, b'neiam yashuva hina. I will bring back the children of Yehuda back to their land. God will inspire these children who were kidnapped and sold far away to return to Israel. And through these children who were once upon a time kidnapped, they will be the ones who impose the recompense on the enemy. Ashuv gumulchem aroshechem. How's that? Umacharti es b'neichem es nosechem b'yad b'nei Yehuda. Now I'm going to sell your children, God says, to these nations. Your sons and daughters, through the Bnei Yehuda. Umecharam l'shvayim. And they will sell them to shvayim, literally captors. But we're going to see this refers to a nation. El goy rachaik, to a faraway nation, ki Hashem diber. So apparently God is saying that in payment for what the Gentiles did, they themselves will be sold, kidnapped, sold, and sold to faraway lands. The Metzudas David says, by the way, Rashi says, who are the Shavaim? The Bnei Shava. the descendants of Sheba. Ki Hashem diber. Now, where did God? It says, "For God has spoken." So I would have said, "God has spoken here." This is where God has spoken. But Rashi says, no, that God has spoken in the early prophecy in Bereshis when He said about Canaan, "Eved avadim yia le'achav, kein mefurash b'mechilton." Ki Hashem diber. For Hashem spoke, ka'omer, as if to say, "Umi yashiv amarav." As if to say, who could turn God back? If God said it, it's going to happen. So now the Navi continues that this report of revenge that will take place against the enemy, Kiru zois bagayim, announce this among the nations, Kadshu milchama, prepare for war, Ha'iru hagibayrim, arouse the mighty ones, Yigishu yalu, Kol anshe hamilchama, let all the men of war approach and rise up. Says the Metzudas David, Kiru as Zois, proclaim this, ha'amor lamata, what is about to be said, Hechrizu bein ha'amim, proclaim among the nations, Kitshu milchama, prepare for war, which war? Hi milchemes goig al Yushalayim. Rashi says, Kitshu milchama, Im tuchlon atem lilachem kenegdi. Basically, God says, hey nations, you get ready for war and you'll see if it helps your preparation. There's nothing you could do to prepare to stand up against me. Now, the Malbim learns, this is the beginning, it's returning to what we said earlier, that it says all the Goyim will gather to Emek Yehoshaphat, and Hashem is commanding that this should be proclaimed among the nations. Now the Malbim introduces again that the Navi Yecheskel in Perek Lamed Beis, Perek Lamed Teches, Perek Lamed Tes, says La'asad Lavai, Edom will be aroused to conquer Eretz Yisrael, and they're going to kill Egypt, who's from the Yishmaelim. Basically like this is the prediction. America will come and say enough is enough, those Arabs in the Holy Land, and they're going to come to the Middle East. They'll knock off the Egyptians, who are from Yishmael, and then the other Yishmaelim who don't like the Egyptians will say, look, we don't like the Egyptians, we don't like the West even more, and then the Yishmaelim will try to take revenge from Rome, from America, and they will massacre the West, and then the West will massacre the East, v'shalom al Yisrael. And this war will happen 3 times. In any event, about the first war, it says to let the mighty ones arouse themselves and approach all the men of war. Now, at first it says, Ha'iru hagibarim yigishu yal kanshem mechama. Now, the first war, it says there'll be gibarim, because by the first war there'll still be gibarim. But when the second war comes, all the gibarim are dead. So again, the Malbim was saying there's a tradition that in the Mechemes Gog and Magog there can be 3 rounds. Or maybe World War I, World War II, World War III. Who knows? But only the first war will have gibarim. Pasuk Yud, Kaitu iteichem lacharavos, umazmaroisechem l'ramachim, hachalash yoymar gibar ani. Kaitu. Beat, itechem, your plowshares, lacharavos, to swords, umazmaroisechem, and your pruning hooks to spears. But I think it's backwards. This is not the famous pasuk. The famous pasuk in the UN, right, is the chitzu, that you're going to grind your weapons into plowshares and your arms into spears. This is the opposite. You're going to have to turn back the plowshares into swords. Because why will this be? Look in the Metzudas David. Kitu shivru achechem lasos mehem charavos. Break your plowshares to make swords out of it, and your pruning hooks to make spears. even the weak will strengthen themselves. So what does this mean? So apparently, the Radak says this is going to be such a major battle that you can be out of weapons. So you're going to have to break down your farming equipment to make weaponry. The Radak says, Amar kol kli barzel heshivu oisam l'klei melchama ki gedoyla tiazois hamelchama. Now we know in Yeshaya it says the opposite. It says v'chitzu charvoisam leitim v'chani sosem lemizmarais. So basically what it says in the UN, quoting Yeshaya, is the opposite. Okay. Now the Malbim explains, in the second round of the war, all those who had swords in the first round are all dead. So who's going to go to war now? The farmers. And they're going to have to take their farming equipment and mold it into weaponry. They're not going to be gibarim. The weak are going to say, I'm gibar. Now, in round 2, even these are all gone. Even these will knock each other dead. So what's going to happen? Pasuk Yud Aleph. Ushu. Ushu means gather. Vavoyu, and come. Kol hagoyim, all the nations. Misaviv. V'nikbitzu, and gather. Shama, hanchas Hashem gibarecha. There Hashem will break your mighty ones. So what does this mean? Ushu, what does Ushu mean? Ushu, gather. V'vayu chol yom yisam v'nikbatzu. There God will break your mighty ones. Shama hanchas. Says it's Shama b'makam hamachama yored Hashem es gibarecha. God will bring down your mighty ones in the depth of the abyss. The Malbim says v'tzomer hagoyim v'ha'amoyin hanasharim, the goyim and the multitude that remains yelchu kulam. They will all go lihilachim shlishas, to fight a third time. Edom mol yishmael b'lo shum gvura klal, and there God will break your mighty ones, and there will not be any gibar in reality at all. We'll do one more pasuk. V'ye'oiru, they will arouse themselves. V'yalu agoyim, the nations will go up. El emek Yehoshaphat, to the valley of Yehoshaphat. Kisham eshev, there I will sit. Lishbait es kol hagoyim, to judge all the nations misaviv, from around. The Metzudas David says, Ye'oiru kol ha'akim yis'oiru, all the nations will be aroused. V'yalu al emek Yehoshaphat hu makam ha'machama. There I will sit. Ka'omer hine sham makam ha'machama. There is the place of war. Yoira al ra'asam, demonstrates their evil. Kisham eshbait es kol ha'akim misaviv. There I will judge all the nations around. Ama shehiru, because of the evil they did. Just want to see Rashi on pasuk Yud Aleph. Ushu kama yichushu. The Targum says it means to gather. However, Rashi says it's a lashon of eshes barzel, a mass of iron that gathers together. There, in the gathering of Emek Yehoshaphat, all of your mighty ones will be broken. Okay, Rabbi say, the plan is, Be'ezus Hashem, to finish Sefer Amos next week. Okay? Shkayach. Have a great day, everyone.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.